Good evening and welcome to Dusty Feet. As you can tell by the red, we've on a red string journey tonight, and we should enjoy that. Remember, wrong button. Let's play smart, Bob. There we go. Updates are on Twitter, of course. We do the countdown for all of our stuff, and then the webpage itself has all of our all the back videos. Last week's video is still up for post, and then of course live feeds to these. So we'll see how that goes. You should enjoy that. And tonight, let's follow the red string. Broken Reflections Part 2. We finished up last time, and Jimmy said we have more we want to talk about and unpack, and I agree. So we decided to do Part 2. So this will be fun. And as always on the Dusty Feet, this is a place where we can safely explore the endless ways of God and the interconnection of His creation, where belief understandings may be challenged, divine misunderstandings may exist, and traditional teachings might falter as we pursue connection, context, and community with God and each other here in an environment of grace and love. So here we go on Follow the Red String. And what's up, buddy?
Hey, bro.
So we're back together, and we're going to do this. So, but we wanted to start out by playing Broken Reflections again to refresh everybody, for especially those that hadn't seen the other one, so that they can, hear where we're coming from. We're sheep leaping, as we use this phrase, off of this, and so it's from Skip Moen, and there's the whole story. We won't get in the whole story. You know the whole story. Go listen to part one. That breaks everything out. That's the whole point of part one, right? So let's listen to Broken Reflections by Skip Moen. Broken Reflections by Skip Moen. Broken. What story do you see? Memories, transitions, disclosure, revelation, discovery. Outside, it seems tragic. Once a place of productive work, now abandoned, purposeless. Reminders of a life that no longer thrives. Broken, shattered, empty. Black tears staining pink skin below the rusted frames, weeping for the loss. But maybe it says something else. When the glass was whole, the inside and outside were kept apart by an invisible wall. This place couldn't breathe. The life inside needed artificial sustenance, artificial light, artificial air, artificial everything. It had meaning because it created obligation. And when the obligation was no longer necessary, life and meaning left. All that time, the world was kept away. There were no holes in the whole. The work inside, the sense of purpose, the meaning of all those interior actions could not escape its voluntary, unconscious prison. We went to work, as if work had a life of its own, as if work was the meaning of our being there, the meaning of us. Age overcame pretension. Now this place, this once captive market of isolation, lives in a different way. Its beauty is not artificial. The dark inside is accessible, eking its way into the light because it is broken. Its beauty, its destruction, the collapse of the isolation inside. Now we see the black tears staining the outside wall, crying over the lost dreams for what they are, the unreality of work apart from the world outside. The factory is finished. A birthing begins. Transformation. What is in the dark interior? What do we want to see? Projections of our own outward reality? Is it empty or filled with mystery? Is it the deep center of our outward journey or a reminder of loss? Are we outside because we have chosen to let the dark break its barriers? Or are we outside because the purpose we once embraced has faded into death? Who occupies the dark place now? Our ghosts or our glimpses of beginnings, of past journeys aiming for something outside that labor dungeon? What does the broken wall of glass disclose? We were once inside, locked away in that dark space, believing we knew what life meant, working for some end that no longer matters. The pink skin of that world pretended to protect us, promised to provide, to punctuate the problems of our lives with monetary exclamation points. But the end came. The doors closed. The workers we were withered. The world broke in and shattered those pretentious projections of purpose and left us probing the dark mysteries of our past, wondering how these holes help us become whole, wondering why we once worried about what doesn't matter now, a revelation in failed fabrication, a poem waiting to be written in black tears on pink concrete. We will write it, new lyrics to an ancient tune winding its way out of the dark. Weep with this monument of disclosure, then dry your tears. Life is not inside, in the brooding dark of our past shattered memories. Life is here, outside, seeing the dark interior, the black skin stains, standing in a story that continues, that knows where it began, and why it cannot remain behind an abandoned origin. Now we are in a place of perspective, viewing the alphabet of the broken edges. What it says is what we need it to say, if we're ready to read. And this is a quote from Steffi Wagner from Healing the Mother Wound. Pain travels through families until someone is ready to feel it. Yeah, there's just so much again in that's if you the link is in the description if you want to get more on that, especially the text itself is there for you to see and read because there's a bunch to it. Okay, what do you have?
Oh, where do I begin?
There you go.
There's much there. Um, if anything, just a moment to pause and let it soak in. As you look at that image, there's so much visual that's going on. Um, and why I would recommend, as Bob said, click on the link and go and read it because there's so much visual in the wording. He was as beautifully poetic in the way that he laid out that poem as that picture was in expressing a story that is so easily passed by
Yeah.
without even thinking twice.
Yeah.
How many times have we driven past an old building, that's dilapidated, house, commercial, industrial, doesn't matter, and you don't think twice. But if you were to stop for a moment and just stand there, like people do in an art museum, in a gallery, you stand and you look at it for a long period of time, and
There's
the
a
longer
story to be told. Yeah, there's a
always,
story behind it.
there's more to it than just
Yeah.
the quick glance.
Yeah.
When you begin to see the detail, and you begin to reflect on, what was the story behind the image that you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
What inspired it, what caused it. One of the things that Skip wrote in there was just, we're looking at the outside in,
Yeah.
but we don't think about what is it from the inside out. And I thought about that. I went the other day, had to go into work early, 4 a.m, and I was looking for a donut shop to bring donuts into the team. And found a shop, and I got there. There's a homeless person laying down outside. And as I looked at her, older woman, um, she reminded me of the broken window.
Yeah.
And I was wondering the last time we talked, and as I looked at her, thinking the same thing, what does she see? I mean, I see the darkness. As you look at that image, you see the shattered glass is bright, but then there's the black. It's like you can't see past the black.
Right.
But we all know you walk into a dark room and your eyes adjust, and there's a lot in there.
There's a ton. Matter of fact, usually it's more and nothing that you expected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so what in that darkness is looking out
Yeah.
into the light?
Yeah.
And what are they? All we see is the dark. All they're seeing is the light. And what kind of light are they seeing?
Well, it's an interesting challenge too in that because they have, like, some of them are purposed, meaning they didn't want to be part of the rat race.
Mm-hmm.
That is all that stuff, and they're looking back, and sometimes they looking back and see, meaning because we've talked to people, have done it, and said, "You're going to work, and I'm not." Yeah, stuff like that. Skip the other behind the eyes and why that decision is even there. In other words, that's like the cursory glance look when you peek in the window, and then you find out, well, what's the story behind all the machinery in there? What's the story? And there, hence, more to the point. Yeah, yeah.
And do we even care? Do we even take the time to stop and care? Not just stop and show an act of kindness, but
Right.
stop it and, like the prodigal, not the prodigal, the Samaritan,
Right.
that didn't just, throw $5 in a cup, took him to a place to rest and paid the man to take care of him and to make sure that, he gets taken care of. Do we take that kind of time to care about what's on the other side of the image that we see?
Yeah, yeah. I've got. It's funny you say that. I just got done editing the video clips for the homework series that go next. Next one's it's love your enemy. Believe it or not, it's dovetailed into this. You can't separate these two in the story. And and now it's turning into, it's now going to be a 4-part deal because I have 4 different clips, and they're going to take an episode each to break these snippets down because there's just so much to unpack in this. And just this exact point is part of that equation. Is that one, that in viewing them the way God views them, which is viewing anyone as God views them. And that's exactly, when you're looking and seeing anybody, that they are a breath-given creation of God who is loved by God equal to you. Yeah. We get very selfish in our thought process with that. Yeah. So our righteous indignation, our right ways of thought. So go on. What else? That's just one of those.
I think we know better.
Yeah.
But even in looking at, as Skip talked about the window and the brokenness, and it's like it was a factory at some point that had productivity and output and all the things that we want life to be.
Yeah.
But we don't know why it stopped. We don't know if it was self-caused. They didn't stay up with the market. They didn't plan well financially. They whatever. Was it externally caused? Was there some circumstance that came down that transformed?
I know nothing about that today, about external circumstances shutting down businesses.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
But Donna and I went to Boston a couple of years ago for a business trip. Fell in love with the city. We just loved both the historical and the more modern aspects of it. It was really just if you ever get a chance, go to Boston if you have.
The brownstones and the whole architecture up there and stuff is stunning. Yeah. Heather talks quite fondly of it, as a matter of fact.
Oh gosh, it's just
Heather talks very fondly of it.
To go down to the pier and just there's of course the food. Okay, another topic, another time. Maybe we need to have we're talking about the Renew series, and we've got the Red String series, and you've got the music series. We need a food series. We got to think of something about food.
Just that little indulgent segue that we can.
There's a lot of spirituality in food, and we could go on forever on that one.
There you go.
But we had a chance to go downtown, where the Boston Marathon is run, and stand in the place where the bombs went off, when they had the bombing of the marathon.
Yeah.
And it was so emotional because all the businesses are back running, everything's normal. Yeah. But if you stand on the side of the street where they went off and you can see the businesses that had been affected, and you look across the street, there's a big building, and I think it's a bank, I can't remember, big concrete walls, but you can see the pockmarks.
Oh my.
Still.
They left it intentionally?
And it tells a story.
Yeah.
A very emotional story.
Yeah.
And it because you saw in the news, the unfolding of everything as it happened.
Yeah.
Of course, they had the movie that I think was it Mark Wahlberg, Patriot Day or something.
Was it? Yeah.
Really good movie. Again, emotional. But you see this image that we were looking at from Skip's poem, and we don't know the story.
Right.
So it doesn't have the emotional grab.
Right.
Had you used to work there, I'm sure when you drive by there, it's going to feel a lot different.
Bring up a bunch of stuff. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Definitely so. And it reminds me that we take very little time to know the story. And
do we care?
Yeah.
That's a huge point, because I'll argue we don't. And we're so busy trying to be right, do right, say right, and make sure that other people know that, and whatever their wrong is, that we've missed caring. Yeah. And with that, obviously goes God's love, is the penultimate expression of that before His, right? And how that plays out. But really asking yourself, do you care?
Mm-hmm.
And it's, as Mackie puts it, that's crushing when you realize, I'm not sure. Deep down. And then you go, that's something I need to work on. Yeah.
If we allow ourselves um, the honesty to really ask that question and be honest about it.
Yeah, then it's a brutal one. Yeah. No, it's where we're so we're having a discussion around in our men's group back here, and part of stuff that's going on is that so busy trying to fix somebody else that we're not, like I said, it's forest for the trees. Call it. It's the log and the splinter. It is Yeshua's. It's Jesus's parable. One at that level, not seeing that you're busy trying to work on somebody's splinter and work on our logs. I should not have to be a splinter picker because I still haven't figured out. I think I got a log out of mine, and I only got a splinter. I'm not there yet. My vision is so blinded. I'm already deaf. So throw in the blind part. Following is a scary venture with me. So one of those little deals. But yeah, no, that brutality is it can get almost incapacitating. You need to have people with you.
Yeah.
If you're going to go down that truthful journey with yourself, you have to have people with you to do that because it can get overwhelming.
Well, we don't want to be wrong. Nobody wants to be wrong.
Pride.
Uh-huh.
Pride. Big sticker.
And it gets in the way. And I think we tend to try to fix people because we think we know what's right. And we think we know what's right for them because we think we know what's right for us.
Because I've seen the outside of your building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we don't understand because we don't see it from their side, their perspective. And that's where we get wrong. And why you said we need a council of many around us.
Yeah.
If we're going to be honest about what we say,
right.
When we say, I want to be a better person, I want to grow, I want to, do better. Right. That means that there's room for improvement. In our company where I work, we call them opportunities.
That's the phrase. In the military, my commander would call me in, or my first or something, who says, Bobby, you have an opportunity to excel, was the statement. It's the opportunity to excel. Like, where am I going now? You're going to Korea. I don't want to go to Korea. Opportunity to excel. Yes, sir. And move on and do your deal. So, yeah.
One of my peers today was talking to the boss, and he's struggling with some stuff in his area of responsibility. And she said, you have lots of opportunity here. It's like, okay.
If depending how you listen to that, you can go, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not potential, opportunity.
Yeah, Heather brings that up every once in a while. It's the same deal. Yeah.
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 But it is because we don't always see things right. Whatever it is, and you and I talked about this. I can't remember if we talked about this off air or on air last time. When you're reffing, and you get blocked by a player and you can't see, the other side of the play.
Yeah.
That is important because we don't get the full picture. And in poems like this and stories like this, where you look at a building like that, it's like we don't know what's going on.
No.
Without knowing, what happened. And then it gives us a better understanding, right or wrong, good or bad. It just helps us see it better.
Yeah. I even get in even with the soccer analogy. So we talk about not getting I can get here and not see what's going on because I can't see what's going on between fingers. I need to get wide so I can see what's in between the fingers, right? And then I
Right.
can see what's going on. But I have to be over here to see that. I
Right.
can't see it this way, and
Right.
and that's a great call, right? And then you go, okay, well, then you have the coaches that have a different perspective because they're on the bench and they can call everything from the benches. I'm like, well, you can call from the benches. Why am I running around out here sweating? I'm going to get one of those volleyball referee chairs,
Right. There
sit
you
up
go.
here, and make the deal. As a matter of fact, history has it in the development of the game. That's what that's what actually the referees actually stood on the touch line, and
Oh.
they would only be an arbitero. That's why you get the when when there's something would happen in the field and the captains didn't agree on the solution. Usually
Right.
the other captain would agree that's a free kick or whatever. That's in the beginning, that was the game. And then they said it got too competitive. This was when the game hit the college levels, and Oxford and Cambridge were not going to play friendly. So when they do this, so they created the referee to break. If the captains came at an impasse, they were the ones that made that call, and it just developed into what we have today.
Right.
Now we have TV, right? So the TV pulls back and it shows the deal. But I'm the first one to tell you that the TV perspective is off because it's behind where the decision's being made. You need another TV angle to see where the decision's made. So then when you see the new VAR stuff, for instance, then they start showing the entire picture, right?
Right.
And when you go back and look at the picture, all of a sudden you go, oh, I get it, offside, whatever that's not a foul, blah, 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 all those kind of things on the perspective piece. You have those. The best call you could make before was the best that you saw and the best that you had. And this is what we do in everyday life. Only God has the big picture in mind, and I'm not going to if I try to do his job, I already know from my game that you're going to blow it. You're going to blow it. And during the game, you're going to swear you're right till you watch your own video.
Yeah.
Players included. I always said, tell them, go watch the video after that during the game, pro game, and I go watch the video after them because VAR wasn't in yet, and I'd say offside, foul, I go watch the video, and then afterwards, I never had anybody come back to me the next week or a couple weeks later whenever I saw them again and come back and go, here's the videotape. We have no, because those kind of things. And I don't ever want to be the one to tell God, hey, God, come on, I'm going to play this video for you. And you got it wrong.
Well, and speaking of video, last week when you and I talked about this, it brought back that I remembered a video I saw online of, a good lesson in perspective.
Yeah.
And you've got a clip of that.
So I have a clip. So
Yeah.
So here's the feed. This is from 1986. The Guardian, they're a publication, one of the larger publications in the UK. This was actually an award-winning clip from them in 1986. Skinheads were, I don't know, popular is a good word to go. There were challenges in society with skinheads, high unemployment. These people were looking for community, blah, 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 and the skinheads were not a good deal. A lot of the racist activity was tied to skinhead activities, kind of deals. But you got a picture of what you thought somebody was by looking at them. That was one. And then when you did that, you brought a bias into that perspective. Okay, you brought a bias in this perspective. That lead in mind, watch this clip from The Guardian.
An event, seen from one point of view, gives one impression. Seen from another point of view, it gives quite a different impression. But it's only when you get the whole picture you can fully understand what's going on.
So, the first clip, he's a skinhead and he's running away. He's coming out of an alley. He's bolting away from something. He's done something wrong. Okay, and now he's running away.
Yep.
The second clip, you see him. Now he's running to somebody. Now he's going to do something wrong. And then when you pull back and get the VAR review on the whole piece, and you realize both those are right, he's actually going to do something very, very right.
He's going to prevent something.
Prevent something. And in this point, we could argue save a life. But your perspective, when you go and you look at that clip and you say, Your Honor, he was running away. He obviously, he's run away from something and and you're not seeing the picture. And we think when we look at somebody's life that we're looking at that one little clip when they're running away, when they're running to, and you're not getting what the event is that's taken them there.
We miss it, and we have an opportunity to get it if we're willing to pause and even get, like you said, we don't get God's perspective sometimes, in the moment. And so if we step back, we can ask God, okay, help me understand the bigger picture here. Begin to inquire. I just finished a book on discipleship, and one of the things it talked about was the importance of asking questions. It's so easy as a discipler to want to teach and train, but sometimes it's molding and shaping based on the person that you're working with, and you have to understand, and so you get to ask questions. And you don't assume that somebody knows something till you ask them whether they do or not. And we don't understand what their circumstances are, where they're coming from, until we begin to inquire. And when we do that, we learn so much. And here it would have been really easy to quick judge, the guy who was running, rather than waiting to see what really was happening.
As in pro games, every single one's assessed. So you have somebody that's watching you. In other words, you think the fans or somebody said, you're not my pressure. 5,000 people screaming at me and so hollering things at the ref. I would literally laugh so hard my shoulders would shake. I'm like, because stuff they're trying to say doesn't mean anything, and it's not new. That's something I said, come up with something new, guys. But I never asked my wife when I got to a game. I never looked at the crowd. At that point, my focus was entirely on the field. And so they'd walk up behind me and I'd never turn around. So my head never spun that way, because that's not my concern. My concern is my area of focus, where I'm in there, so I can catch as much as I can when I did that kind of stuff in those scenarios. That said, that was a little detour. The assessors, the best ones I had, bar none, Don Wilbur, Bob Poyer, and then Bob Correa, as he got later in his career especially, were masters at doing just what you said, asking questions. And they're evaluating you, but they ask questions. What did you see? What was going on? Where were we in the game? What had happened before? Asking these questions. So you're having to recall those things, and you do. You're remembering what's going on and why this and why that. And Heather still jokes today. It shocks her when I'm looking at a game and I go, and the next whistle's going to be a card. And I'm watching an EPL game. Whistle, hard, card. And I said, because the game, it was something I can read a game and do those pieces. And you want to sit back and ask the ref, why did it need to get there? Or why did that happen? And you find out sometimes there's nothing you could have done. Billy and Bobby had been feuding with each other for the last 3 years. Okay? At that level, you actually did your homework. You actually found out where did they finish last year, the last 2 seasons. Or these are 2 teams that duked it out, or these are 2 teams that were trying not to be relegated, sold. How many had different coaches. And you're aware of these things because you need to be aware of how people are going to respond. Because in that moment, you're the one that needs to be able to handle all of that stuff at the same time. But when it comes to somebody's life, you don't ask any questions. You don't care. You just come in and fix their problems. And that's not what they want. That's not what they want. And the game doesn't want that. You come in and fix their problems. That's not what the game wants. Yeah. It's huge
How many
that way.
times did Jesus encounter somebody in a circumstance where could have easily fixed, the woman at the well, and yet he begins to say things that cause her to ask her own questions, and delve into her story more.
Poke back questions. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the rich young ruler and the Pharisees, and the list goes on, of him. We could say he was being strategic and calculating and everything. And I think he was being human and wanting to genuinely get to know somebody and
Asking the question and
Mhm.
and caring what their answer was going to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely so. And
Yeah.
and sometimes we get so busy, we don't have time for that. We've got too many more important things to do. Therefore, we don't pause to really find out.
When even our but we're trained in our culture. I won't speak. It's common. I didn't unfind it in Europe, for instance, when I was there, or in the Orient.
Mm-hmm.
Not as much, I'll be honest, and say that you walk by somebody, how are you? Fine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's already in our DNA, meaning it's already ingrained at a very young age that it's very surface. You ask the question, you give an answer. Both are lies.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to know how they're doing.
Yeah.
That's a lie. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But we have it as a cursory white truth, right? Or a white lie. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just being nice, right? Do that. And then we lie in response. Fine. How you doing? Fine. Both are lies.
I've gotten into the habit now when I go anywhere and somebody asks, "How are you?" The teller at the bank, the cashier at the grocery store, and I will say, "I'm doing exceptionally average." And probably 80% of the time, there's no response.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, somebody's like, "What does that even mean?"
Yeah. What is it?
That doesn't make any sense. And you realize, oh, maybe they were listening.
Maybe they were listening because they listened to the speak. The other one was just that blank
Exactly.
stare of, okay, I did my cursory blah,
Yeah.
and your Charlie Brown teacher came through. Wah, 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 wah. Yeah, and we do. And it's in our normal behavior. Normal meaning it's what we do culturally, right? That we already have it built in that we don't care. To ask you, and there'll be times where I'll say, "Do you really want to get in this conversation?"
Yeah.
I every once in a while, I don't. I seldom answer full questions on social media, Facebook. You do
Smart.
anything? I seldom answer. Usually, I'll start with asking questions. What's the deal? And then, if you want to talk, I said, if you really want to know everything that I feel about this, or what I believe, then we'll find, like, I usually take it across to Messenger or Telegram or something like that, and do that, and then we'll have that conversation, because I'm not there to debate somebody else that knows nothing and doesn't care. And number two, I said, this is a long discussion. Every single time I could say technically I still have a couple guys that are still walking through this stuff, but everybody else drops off. Because if you don't want to know all of this that goes with this and all this, tell me about your God in a sentence or in a deal. Impossible.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. And
Yeah.
what I believe doesn't work that way. There is no little pamphlet that you're going to open with colors that's going to define my relationship with the Creator. It doesn't exist. So if you want to know that, you're going to ask. But I'm not going to assume that you want that. I'm not. I can't assume that. But if you're willing, I'm game. And not to convince you. You're asking me what mine is. I'm not there to tell you where I do, but that's the conversation. And then I get to ask you. The fun part I have with a couple of guys was, are you comfortable with us not agreeing with each other? That's an interesting part to say, can we live together and not agree on something, whatever that might be? And the fact that I can see something different than you, and vice versa. You're seeing something different from me. And can we do that? But it only matters if you care.
Yeah.
Because if you don't care, then it's easy. Then they go, no. I go, okay.
And what's it going to take to get us to care? For Skip, for him to even reflect on that window and the moment he went through a bicycling accident.
Yeah.
And that got him thinking. It made him stop long enough to pause and reflect. And sometimes we're not intentional enough to do that. Therefore, God sometimes has to do it for us. And none of us want that.
Yeah.
But if we're willing to take the opportunity
Yeah.
to learn from it, we can actually end up being better as a result of it.
Well, and we don't know, like the trickle effect, in other words, or the ripple effect. The pond, the rock is thrown in the pond, the ripples are going out. Our dad had this similar experience with hit by a car on a bike, right? And it banged him up pretty good. And it was one of those, how is he going to respond to this? And the interaction with the hospital staff, the nurses, everything, and then the people afterwards, and the story told afterwards, and how this rolls out. And then that's the first ripples you see. You don't see that going all the way across the pond.
Right.
Is that then how does this affect and stuff you don't know? To where if you acted rashly and you apologized to one person, but 6 people saw it, 5 of those ripples go off somewhere and didn't get that.
Yeah.
All they got was that reaction that we had. Or I'll call it the non-reaction, meaning the not caring. So you didn't ask, or you didn't really care. You asked me how I was, but you really don't care. And that's where I'm with guys I'm communicating with. I'm trying hard to say, I care. And so if you're willing to share, I care. And then you can come throw up on me. I don't care. You're not going to offend me. You're not going to scare me, because you can't. That's referee again. There's nothing you can say. My mother wears army boots, and it doesn't work. Language doesn't work on me. I don't have a button to push on those kind of issues. And so, talk. You're not going to scare me with whatever you did in your past. Okay. There's a lot of people with pasts probably worse than yours that we'll go and walk through and learn through and live through. Is, can I see past your, like the window, can I see past your broken facade, look into the building, and again, it's the perspective of still looking in. Am I willing to go inside the building, go in and look out? Am I willing to get in your shoes? Am I willing to take the time to understand where you came from, to understand the trauma of your past, the trauma of your childhood, whatever that case may be, events, and do I care enough to be in your shoes and to try to understand, even when I don't? There's times where I'm not going to understand, but try as best I can and love you through the whole thing and not break fellowship because of it. Yeah, you're going to scare me. So, oh, okay, well, we can't talk to each other anymore. You're this, and I can't.
And that's easier said than done. It's easy for us to say that, but to really stick with somebody through the messiness, the ugliness, the dirtiness.
Oh yeah.
And we know because we've been in it. We've been on the side of the ugly part, and I know it's not.
Oh yeah.
Pleasant. But
that is intentional. The word you use, that is intentional. Yeah. You don't
Right.
accidentally do that.
No,
Yeah.
no, it has to be choice. And are we in it for the long game? God, when you look at God's plans, they've never been short term. They've always been for the long game.
And
And
Paul, I mean, we go from from Adam to Paul if we're looking for our time frames, right? In words where we're getting scriptural writings from, every single one dealt either their life experience was long term, their life events, like Moses had 3 sets of 40, right?
Mhm.
In his deal, and then Paul living shorter lives, doing things was still endurance, endurance, endurance.
When you
And
look
and
at,
and and what's long term?
yeah, exactly. God's story, we like, I mean, I'm pastor. I like to focus on the New Testament because it's all the good stuff, but you realize the majority of the Bible is the Old Testament, and how much of that story is the understructure for what the New Testament is built on.
It's the foundation. If you
Hmm.
don't do that, you're talking about the roof and the trim, and you're not even near in what's holding it up.
Yeah.
And you don't get to see that beauty and what it protects, i.e., a roof and trim, right? What it protects on the inside, if you don't understand what's underneath and that foundation below. And you're right. It's scary to do that because then you start to read, it starts asking you questions. It does. It does the exact thing we're talking about. It starts asking you questions. Mackie
And
does a brilliant job of
he does.
doing that in that asking questions scenario. Skip's the same way. I'm going
And
to get that.
helping us to understand, what was happening.
Yeah.
And it's not just the story, the structure, but it's also the timeline. God was intentional about taking his sweet time
Yeah.
to do all of
Yeah.
this. He could have done it instantly.
Yeah.
He could have just went straight to the New Testament,
Yeah.
but he didn't for a reason.
Yeah.
And we're learning what that is. In our culture, it's hard to appreciate the value of time
Harder
and everything.
today than it's ever been.
Gosh, it's they're
Yeah.
they're the whole 3D printer can create all kinds of things really quick now.
Yeah.
They're making houses with 3D printers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it, and there you lose the idea of craftsmanship, and mastery of a certain art or ability that we just want things fast, and we want our our problems to be fast over,
Yeah.
and we don't realize that.
Just get over it.
Mhm.
Just go over. Matter of fact, I had a chat with a lad today about that, and it's that some of the things you need to change, and one of those was the just get over it. Some people are they see they think they just get over things quicker. I'm not
Mhm.
convinced of that, but there's a lot more to ask that's underneath that. You're quick to shove down,
Mhm.
compartmentalize, stick it in a box,
Mhm.
but that doesn't address the problem nor the question.
No,
No,
it doesn't.
no. And men are the worst at it by far,
Yeah.
by far.
Painfully have to agree with that.
Yeah, it's a sad state to talk about your gender that way, but it's true. And then I got this cool toy which I'll show you later. It's called a Vestaboard, and I watch and so on YouTube I watch clips of guys unboxing things and doing things and showing stuff so I can catch up and do it, and you realize guys like the exception is like 1 in 99 will
Yeah.
read an instruction, do the deal. Guys, and then so they cut things, tear things, do things wrong, upside down, backwards, going, and they're willing to put. It's like, really, dudes, you're not helping our gender at all, and you're feeding the stereotype to all of us because not willing to be honest to say I can be wrong, and do that. I'd rather just do and it. Oh my gosh, we're just atrocious at this point, and how come this didn't work? And he's saying it tells you don't do this as he's doing it, and you're like, okay, well, I don't know if I want to know you in life. I'm kind of scares me that's part of the point that goes with that. The danger in that, and I think we tend to we've so used the word that instructions are optional and they don't matter, that when then we go and say that scripture has a lot of instruction in it. It's a love. These are series of stories. It's a love story with letters, poems, and a little and story writing is weave and intricately weaves things out, and instructions on here's some ways to make this go, and to just blow them off because it doesn't matter today, or it's not the deal, and we don't do what you said about context. And that's my big focus in my late in life has been context and community. Context, and community. That was important pieces of the puzzle. Context being one of my huge points that I bring back when we were doing studies. I'm the one that wraps in. Okay, this time, this stuff, these deal. Think about again. That's like bringing the picture back a bit. Yeah.
And it really proves the point that Solomon said thousands of years ago. There's nothing new under the sun. They didn't listen to instruction back in the Old Testament. They didn't listen to instruction in the New Testament. We're still not listening to instructions today, and we're missing out.
And what happened to each of those groups? This is the thing that gets you. We're a living YouTube video. In other words, now today it's on film. I think that's the most embarrassing part. At least when Jesus is talking to when he finally whittles it down to the 12, and that's not a good thing, mind you, that it broke down to that 12, because there's a lot in that where the guys weren't ready. And they weren't. He had 70 that were devout to a point, and then when it gets to the end, he starts talking about the hardcore stuff, and then eat my flesh, drink my blood, those kind of things. As they're not grasping this, it freaked them out, right? Yeah. And it freaked them out. To say that they not come back afterwards, I'd say yes, very much so. I think that they comprised a large number of the Council of 70 that reside in Jerusalem. That James was the leader of, James Michael. So I don't think it was James Michael, but it was definitely James. In that setup, when we don't have the conversations of Jesus talking with them, and he's telling the story, he's trying to explain stuff, and he's shaking his head, going, "Okay, I'll say it again," and those deals, and we don't hear those today. It's all on YouTube, and we're still making those stupid things. You're right. It's just we're a nightmare. We're a hot mess.
And that's why I think I love the title of Jesus as Redeemer, because he can take the mess that we've created, all by ourselves, and he can do something with it. And that to me is what is the beauty of the whole story, as you see the nation of Israel and their hot mess, and he redeems them. And then he comes to all of mankind and says, you're all a big hot mess, but I'm willing to take you and recycle you and use you even in your brokenness, which is what Skip was talking all along. Right. Take that brokenness and do something with it.
Yeah. What's interesting in that kinsman redeemer role is that there was a double responsibility there, because one, you compensated, there was some compensation, the redemption, but you were also taking responsibility for. So, and there's times where we think we're going and helping, and we're doing neither.
Yeah.
We're not willing to cover whatever it is that needs to be covered, and we're not willing to do all of it. We're not willing to to be responsible for them, to be responsible for the we're not. So we think we're in that role. And when you ask, well, are you being responsible for, or are you taking care of all this? No, then you're not doing it. You might be doing something else. I'll give you that. But what are we doing? Where Jesus, in his Redeemer role, as kinsman Redeemer, redeems us all, pays and takes responsibility, right?
Right.
And that's that weight, of that responsibility, and then the patience. And it's interesting, and I don't want to go off on a diatribe on this one, but when they said, okay, when are you coming back, was the question, and he says, I don't know. Father knows. I don't know. I'm not him. He's not me. I was this role. This is me. Right. He knows. So in that setup, we're obviously looking at the Hebrew Bible, the Hebrew Scriptures, and telling you God's a long-term guy. Yeah, and I can't we'll talk sometime about God in control and the flood, right? We'll get into that discussion sometime. But how long and how bad things have to get, you already know, because he talks about ages, so you get an idea about how long that time frame is, because he talks about lineages for our purposes. But how long it did, a long time before things went, and then time after that to here, and then time after that to now, from Jesus to now, and yeah, long term. And then we're always ready to do the Dunkin' Donut fix, We'll go, get it, and we have the answer. We know it's now. We've been saying now for the last 2,000 years. Yeah.
Well, and Jesus was willing, as the Redeemer, to count the cost, and knew what it would cost him. God knew what it would cost him, and he knew what it would cost us.
It did cost. Yeah.
Everybody. It literally cost everybody.
People
something.
Talk about free, and I tell them I don't agree, and it automatically puts hackles up on the back of people's necks, and because I don't agree. It's never been free.
Yeah.
It's never been free. Accepting something and free are two totally different things. Accepting something with no cost. I hand you $100. You're accepting it, but it's not free. That $100 came from somebody and did something to do that. It's not free. Accepting is one thing. Because I agree with you. Everybody in this has a cost. And if you think you don't have a cost, I'm not sure you're in the game. Yeah? Which is another scary thought.
Well, and if we're willing to count the cost of following Christ, then we know that if you're all in, you're vested, and there's going to be things that aren't going to be easy, and life is going to hit you up hard sometimes. And what God does with that is going to be the beautiful side of it, not necessarily always in the midst of it. When you look at that building, I've always been one of those guys. I love to see old buildings, and I think, what potential could you do with something like that to make it really cool, and incorporate the history of it, but then also bring life back to it. And I think part of that's just the creative brain that I have. Part of it is the God inside me that loves to do that kind of thing, to take something broken and make it more beautiful. We talked about the kintsugi, Japanese art of taking something broken and making it more beautiful. And I have this plate that my kids got me that is, as you can see, it's broken. It's got the crack in it, but it's put together with gold to make it a piece of art rather than just a broken plate. And to me, that's what God does with our lives. And I love that. And I love the fact that we get to be that for other people as well.
Yeah, I think I've been talking to this with a bunch of guys too. It's an interesting point that you bring this up, that I think somewhere in our past, we've been told that being wrong, being broken is wrong.
Yeah.
Okay? Being
Yeah.
broken is wrong. And Kintsukuroi, if it does anything, it shows that being broken, you have an opportunity to become even more beautiful. In other words,
That's
it's that bowl, plate, structure, whatever it is that they do this to, because we'll show this towards the end, is that it it becomes a whole nother thing of beauty.
yeah.
And it can only be that way in that. And God gets to now bring, and I would say that that's his reflection in you. In other words, when you're broken, and then this Asian art has captured that. It's captured that moment where God says, this is my value connected to you. The precious gold and silver that we talk about. And it connects these artifacts. And actually, if you go do some stories on it, maybe we'll do when we'll break out, because there's a story about a little girl who has something this bowl or cup from grandma that she has,
Great.
and it's a very valuable piece, and it breaks, and she keeps it for years and years and years, and then finally goes and has it, and it brings back all the memories of her grandmother and all those just get up and all that. But it was so valuable to her, and then she finally took it to somebody to have it repaired, and it became this absolute thing of beauty that was there. But they hold things for so long with this, and it's part of the culture. It's a dying part of the culture. It is. It's a waning part of the culture, but it still exists, and they still do. And you see some brilliant stuff, and I agree. We have this point where we think being broken is wrong, and so we go, how can we use I'm broken? Because again, it's only a point if you think it's wrong. Because if it's not wrong, okay, I'm broke, so fix me. Yeah, God fix me. I'll have a doctor fix me first. I have no problem having a doctor reset bones, put pins. Mom, when she fell and had her arm, she had all the little things sticking out of her arm. I'm like, oh, that's really good. Can you play the piano? If you wiggle your fingers, will it go do 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 do? You know, or something? I don't
And you
know.
pull the strings and
That's it. You put a little shocker thing.
like a marionette puppet.
That's it. And it can do that, but yet we won't let God do that to us. Because because it's shame. We think it's wrong. And scripture doesn't say that, but our culture and our context, and I'll argue our churches have said it. Yeah, and it's not a good side of us.
Yeah.
Like I said, when I talk about men, we're not doing good to our gender. Churches have done the most damage to God than anybody. The heathen doesn't do damage to God, as a matter of fact. The non-believer does not damage God in any way, shape, or form. We, as the church, the body of Christ, as we have today, we damage God more than anybody else. And we have. And we need to admit that. Yeah.
We live in a disposable society. We use stuff up and throw it away.
Yeah.
And we don't recycle it well.
Yeah.
And we need to. And maybe the Kintsukuroi thing will be something we'll explore in our first, when we start doing the Renew series.
Yeah.
Going a little deeper into it and really looking at what that means, what it represents.
That would be cool. Okay, so that wraps us up for the evening. Again, we love these things. And make sure you hit the right button here. Right, here we go. Updates will be on Twitter, of course, DustyFeet, previous episodes, links, all that stuff's there. Next week, homework series, Love Your Enemy. I just got done editing the videos for that, and it's going to be a 4-part series. Just so you know now, that's one episode of Mackie. We broke it into 4 because there's so much to unpack. So, and I hope to have some guests, maybe if we're lucky. we can arrange to have some guests on too, which will help. So we'll go over this homework series because there's a lot to unpack, especially in the Love Your Enemy. This is going to hit you right between the eyes with a 2 before. Okay. That said, we've been ending these with a poem. And it's my show, so I get to recycle if I choose to. And I'm choosing to. So we're going to do this again. However, last week, it did tie into Wilby. We were talking about broken pieces and broken people, and doing what we just segued to at the end of this was that brokenness being put back together again. That poem is Jimmy's, but I want you to hear it from the author's mouth. So here's the poem.
You have taken what was broken, answered prayers of words unspoken, mended pieces that were shattered into someone new that mattered. Golden seams in broken places, filling in the empty spaces. With your love so all enfolding, healed my heart that you are holding. I am beautifully broken.
And thanks for being with us tonight on The Dusty Feet.